The moment my mother-in-law tapped her silver fork against her crystal wine glass and announced to the entire restaurant that my husband was covering the check, the air in my lungs just stopped. The other 14 people at that exclusive Charlotte rooftop steakhouse burst into applause. They raised their glasses of top-shelf Bordeaux, already digesting the prime rib they had ordered without a second thought. They were completely thrilled that our bank account was taking the hit for a $1,600 feast. My husband, Tyler, smiled and nodded, playing the big, generous host. His mother, Brenda, leaned back in her leather chair and caught my eye from across the table. She flashed this smug, victorious little smile, lifting her chin like she owned me. My jaw locked. I squeezed the strap of my purse under the table, letting the rough edge bite into my palm, and forced my mouth into a polite, quiet curve. Let her smile. Let her soak up the applause. She had absolutely no idea that this was the very last meal she would ever steal from me. I am 31 years old, and I work as a logistics coordinator. My entire career is built on managing complex freight routes, tracking shipping discrepancies, and knowing exactly when a supply chain is leaking. It is a demanding, unglamorous job that requires a ruthless eye for detail. Brenda hated my job. She called it blue-collar truck tracking. She came from a family that prided itself on pedigree and country club memberships, even though their actual wealth had dried up decades ago. She constantly mocked my working-class background at a family brunch just 3 months prior. She loudly criticized the stitching on my thrifted winter coat, wondering aloud if Tyler could afford to buy me something presentable. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stared at my plate. Tyler looked away, studying the wallpaper like it held the secrets of the universe. He always looked away. The financial drain started small but escalated with terrifying speed. A few $100s for Brenda's car repairs. A sudden $1,000 deposit for his sister Megan's rent. Tyler handled our joint finances. A system we set up when we got married under the guise of trust. But the money kept evaporating. I confronted Tyler in our kitchen one evening after noticing $500 missing from our savings. He rubbed his temples, his face twisting into a mask of pure exhaustion. He told me I was overreacting. He said we needed to respect our elders, that family helps family, and that he just wanted to keep the peace. That was the exact moment the blindfold fell off. Tyler was not a peacekeeper. A peacekeeper stands between the threat and the victim. Tyler was a coward. He was using me as a human shield, perfectly willing to let his mother bleed us dry and disrespect me in my own home, just so he could avoid facing her tantrums. His neutrality was an active, deliberate betrayal. He chose her comfort over my survival every single time. I stopped arguing. Arguments require a partner who actually cares about your perspective. Instead, I applied my professional logistics skills to my own marriage. I sat at my kitchen island at 2 o'clock in the morning, opened my laptop, and pulled the raw data from our joint credit union accounts. No hacking. No magic passwords. Just my legal login and a spreadsheet. I matched dates, routing numbers, and transfer logs. The final number flashed on the screen. Cold and indisputable, $38,500. That was the exact amount Tyler had secretly funneled to Brenda and Megan over the last 2 years to fund their luxury cruises. Oa-doos and designer bags. Staring at that number, a profound psychological shift occurred in my brain. Looking at a photograph on the fridge of Brenda holding a designer clutch I had unknowingly paid for, the anger simply evaporated. It was replaced by a clinical, surgical clarity. Brenda did not hate me. Hate requires viewing someone as a human being. Brenda viewed me as an appliance. I was just a refrigerator or an ATM. You do not feel guilty when you pull cash from a machine. When the machine stops dispensing cash, you do not feel remorse. You just get angry that it is broken. I had spent years crying over someone who only saw me as a financial utility. It was time to pull the plug. I did not scream. I did not throw plates. I met quietly with a family law attorney to understand my exact rights. I could not legally steal the money back, nor could I delete my name from a joint account without Tyler's signature. But I could secure my future. I opened a new private account at a completely different bank. I legally transferred exactly 50% of our liquid cash into it, representing my undisputed marital share. I left Tyler's direct deposits completely untouched so he would not receive any automated fraud alerts. Then I printed the audited spreadsheet, highlighting every single stolen transfer, and placed it inside a beautifully bound red folder. The absolute killing blow came just 3 hours before Brenda's birthday dinner. I picked up my phone, called the credit union, and reported our joint credit card, the only card Tyler carried in his wallet, as lost. The representative confirmed the line of credit was immediately frozen, which brings us back to the steakhouse. The air in the room was thick with the smell of roasted garlic and expensive perfume. Brenda was at peak arrogance. She ordered 3 colossal seafood towers for the table, loudly whispering to her book club friends that it was a shame I wore such a cheap dress to a fine dining establishment. I took a slow sip of my ice water. The waitress placed the leather billfold next to Tyler's plate. $1,600. Tyler puffed out his chest, completely oblivious to his impending doom, and confidently handed the waitress the joint card. The waitress walked over to the terminal. Tyler went back to laughing at a joke Jason Carter, his freeloader neighbor, was telling. The waitress returned a moment later. She slid the card back across the table. A short, flat beep echoed from the portable machine. Declined. Tyler chuckled. Assuming it was a chip reading error, he wiped the gold contact with his thumb and inserted it again. Beep. Declined. The blood drained from Tyler's face. The smug smile on Brenda's lips faltered. She leaned in, her voice dripping with fake, theatrical concern, asking if everything was okay. Tyler started sweating. The back of his expensive collar grew damp. He looked across the table at me, his eyes wide, begging me to open my purse and save him, begging me to play the good. Quiet wife one last time. I stood up. The heavy wooden chair scraped against the floor, silencing the entire table of 14 people. I reached into my purse. Tyler exhaled, thinking salvation was coming. Instead, I pulled out a crisp $50 bill and handed it directly to the waitress, telling her it was to cover my single house salad and tap water. Then, I pulled out the heavy red folder. I dropped it directly onto Brenda's plate, right into a puddle of leftover truffle butter. I looked Tyler dead in the eye. My voice was completely steady, cutting through the silence like glass. I told him that folder contained the receipts for the $38,500 he stole from our future to fund his mother's vanity. I told him he was going to pay this $1,600 bill, or he was going to walk into the kitchen and start washing dishes. Then, I told him I wanted a divorce. I turned on my heel and walked toward the exit. The cool North Carolina night air hit my face. And for the first time in 3 years, I could breathe deeply. Behind me, the restaurant descended into absolute chaos. Megan shrank back in her chair, outright refusing to hand her brother her credit card, proving her toxic selfishness to everyone watching. Jason Carter awkwardly asked the waitress for a to-go box for his $90 steak. tossed a crumpled 20 on the table, and scurried out the back door. The restaurant manager approached the table, his arms crossed. Tyler stood there entirely alone, stripping his Rolex off his wrist to offer as collateral while frantically dialing predatory payday loan companies in the lobby. 3 days later, I was unpacking boxes in my new, secure apartment. I had blocked their numbers and cut all contact. I thought the war was over. I thought the silence meant peace. But a narcissist never lets their favorite appliance walk away without trying to smash it into pieces. Brenda was not going to let her public humiliation go unanswered. She used Tyler's family phone plan portal to track my new address before my number was fully ported over. She drove to my building and put on the performance of a lifetime. She sobbed to my new superintendent, clutching her chest, claiming she was a terrified mother delivering emergency heart medication to her daughter. The super, completely fooled by the tears, unlocked my door for her. I was sitting at my desk at the logistics firm when my phone buzzed. A motion alert from the hidden nanny cameras I had installed the day I moved in. I opened the live feed. Brenda was pacing through my living room, her face twisted in pure, unhinged rage. She grabbed a heavy iron golf club Tyler had left in the trunk of my car months ago. She walked straight toward the kitchen island where I had left my electronics. I did not panic. I did not rush home to confront her. I knew the law in North Carolina. Property damage becomes a high-level felony the second the value crosses the $1,000 threshold. I had intentionally left out a decoy work laptop and 2 specific pieces of appraised jewelry. Together, their documented value was exactly $3,500. On the audio feed, Brenda screamed into the empty apartment. She yelled that she wanted to see me do my little blue-collar audits without a computer. She raised the club and brought it down, shattering the laptop screen. I hit a single button on my phone and dialed emergency services. I reported an active, violent burglary in progress at my address because I did not intervene, because I let her dig her own grave. The police arrived while she was still inside. I watched on the camera as 2 officers kicked the door wide open. Brenda froze, the golf club still raised above her head, surrounded by shattered glass and broken gold chains. The color completely vanished from her face. She dropped the club. She started sobbing, screaming for Tyler, demanding they call her son. But Tyler was completely broke. His accounts were frozen. His watch was gone. And his credit was destroyed. He could not afford a defense attorney, let alone the massive bail bond required for a felony destruction of property and larceny charge. Brenda left my apartment in steel handcuffs, her head shoved down into the back of a police cruiser. The justice system moves slowly, but it moves with absolute certainty when you hand them a perfect, documented case. The judge sentenced Brenda to 6 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 4 years. The court also ordered restitution of $3,500 for the damages. But the real punishment was the social execution. The police report made the local papers. Her book club friends, the same women who drank my wine at the steakhouse, completely abandoned her. Tyler moved into a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, too ashamed to show his face in his old neighborhood. 6 months into her sentence, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It had the county jail stamp on the envelope. I knew exactly what it was. The hollow echo of a defeated manipulator. She wrote 3 pages trying to guilt trip me, claiming she was an old woman, claiming she did it all for the family, begging me to speak to the parole board on her behalf. I read the letter standing in my kitchen. I felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No pity. I folded the pages perfectly in half, dropped them into the trash can, and walked away. I did not reply. Silence is the only answer a narcissist truly understands. Today, my life is incredibly quiet, and I protect that quiet with everything I have. I spend my weekends with friends who respect my boundaries. People who ask how my day was without handing me a bill at the end of the conversation. I built a chosen family that requires absolutely no financial toll for their love. If you are watching this and you are currently playing the peacekeeper in a war you did not start, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are not keeping the peace. You are absorbing the violence so no one else has to. I learned 3 vital rules from the ashes of my marriage, and they will save your life if you let them. Rule number 1, the narcissist's appliance. Toxic people do not mourn you when you leave. They mourn the resources you provided. Never expect empathy, closure, or an apology from someone who only ever viewed you as a bank. You cannot negotiate with someone who does not see you as human. Rule number 2, the enabler is the real enemy. The person holding the door open for your abuser is just as guilty as the abuser. When your partner tells you they just want to keep the peace, what they are actually saying is that they are perfectly willing to let you be destroyed so they do not have to deal with the discomfort of standing up for you. Rule number 3, speak with actions, not arguments. Anger is just an emotion, but boundaries are an execution. You do not win by screaming at a dinner table. You do not win by begging them to understand your pain. You win by knowing your numbers, securing your exits, setting the trap, and letting their own arrogance destroy them. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, trust is earned. It is never owed. Have you ever been the peacekeeper in a toxic family? Have you ever funded your own abuser because you were told it was your duty? Drop your story in the comments below. It is time we stop keeping their secrets. I am Rachel Brooks, and I am finally free. Publish ready script. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why on earth did she wait 3 entire years? Why did she let them drain nearly $40,000 before finally dropping the hammer? It is so easy to judge from the outside, to look at those bank statements and scream at Rachel to pack her bags on day 1. But financial abuse within a family does not start with a massive bank heist. It starts with a $50 grocery bill, a missed car payment, a guilt trip about respecting your elders. Rachel was not stupid. She was trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. When you are dealing with a toxic family dynamic, they do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. If they did, you would leave immediately. Instead, they give you tiny crumbs of hope, a hug at Christmas, a compliment about your career, a week where Tyler actually acted like a supportive husband. Those crumbs trigger dopamine, keeping you pulling the lever, hoping this time the family will finally accept you. Rachel was addicted to the potential of the family, completely blind to the reality of the theft. But when the blindfold finally came off, Rachel executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let's break down the street smart move she made that completely destroyed Brenda's reign of terror. First, she used the audit strategy, scammers, especially entitled family members, rely entirely on the fog of emotion. They want you arguing about respect and family values because if you are crying, you are not calculating. Rachel stopped crying and opened a spreadsheet. She removed the emotion and followed the money. When you are being exploited, data is your greatest weapon. Document everything. Dates, amounts, locations. Scammers hate details. Second, she executed the buyout. Notice how Rachel didn't try to steal the money back illegally. She didn't forge a signature or drain the entire joint account out of spite. which would have landed her in civil court. She took exactly 50%, her legal, undisputed marital share. She mathematically zeroed out Tyler's equity to repay herself. She stayed completely within the boundaries of the law, which made her red folder drop a legally binding death sentence for Tyler's finances, rather than an empty threat. Finally, she mastered the live trap. When Brenda broke into her apartment, Rachel's instinct as a victim might have been to rush home and confront her abuser. That is exactly what Brenda wanted. Brenda wanted a screaming match. Rachel gave her the police. By using the nanny cam footage to document the property damage crossing the felony threshold, Rachel built an airtight criminal case without ever stepping foot in the room. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and mutual care make you family. When someone shows you they view you as an appliance, believe them the first time. Unplug their access to your life, your money, and your peace. If you have survived a financial parasite in your own life, I want to hear your survival tactics in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of toxic relationships. And remember, your peace of mind is the one asset they can never take from you unless you hand them the keys. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why did Rachel wait 3 entire years? Why did she let them drain $38,500 before finally dropping the hammer? It is so easy to judge from the outside, to look at those bank statements and scream at Rachel to pack her bags on day one. But financial abuse within a family does not start with a massive bank heist. It starts with a $50 grocery bill, a missed car payment, a guilt trip about respecting your elders. Rachel was not stupid. She was trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. When you are dealing with a toxic family dynamic, they do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. If they did, you would leave immediately. Instead, they give you tiny crumbs of hope, a hug at Christmas, and a rare compliment about your career. A week where Tyler actually acted like a supportive husband, those crumbs trigger dopamine, keeping you pulling the lever, hoping this time the family will finally accept you. Rachel was addicted to the potential of the family, completely blind to the reality of the theft. But when the blindfold finally came off, Rachel executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let's break down the 3 street smart moves she made that completely destroyed Brenda's reign of terror. First, she used the audit strategy. Scammers, especially entitled family members, rely entirely on the fog of emotion. They want you arguing about respect and family values, because if you are crying, you are not calculating. Rachel stopped crying and opened a spreadsheet. She removed the emotion and followed the money. When you are being exploited, data is your greatest weapon. Document everything, dates, amounts, location. Scammers hate details. Second, she executed the buyout. Notice how Rachel did not try to steal the money back illegally. She did not forge a signature or drain the entire joint account out of spite, which would have landed her in civil court. She took exactly 50%, her legal, undisputed marital share. She mathematically zeroed out Tyler's equity to buy back her freedom. She stayed completely within the boundaries of the law, which made her red folder drop a legally binding death sentence for Tyler's finances, rather than an empty threat. Finally, building the case, when Brenda broke into her apartment, Rachel's instinct as a victim might have been to rush home and confront her abuser. That is exactly what Brenda wanted. Brenda wanted a screaming match. Rachel gave her the police. By waiting, by using the nanny cam footage to document the property damage crossing the felony threshold. Rachel built an airtight criminal case without ever stepping foot in the room. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and mutual care make you family. When someone shows you they view you as an appliance, believe them the first time. Unplug their access to your life, your money, and your peace. If you have survived a financial parasite in your own life, I want to hear your survival tactics in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of toxic relationships. And remember, your peace of mind is the one asset they can never take from you unless you hand them the keys.